There are things the river knows that the village has never said aloud. The Rusalka does not begin in the water. She begins in a house with a man who told her he would stay, and a child she was already making room for, and a name she had already chosen and had not yet told anyone, because she was waiting until after. There was no after. He left in the 3rd month. The child did not survive the winter. She did not survive the spring, and the grief had nowhere to go. So it went into the water. That is where the cycle began. That is where it has never stopped. The village does not call her by name. They have not called her by anything for 300 years. But the river remembers. The river has always remembered. And when the season turns, and the light goes long and gold across the surface, she is there. Not because she wants to be, because the water was the only place left. Understand what she was before you understand what she became. She was not the kind of woman who drowned quietly. She was the kind of woman who planted things in March because she knew they would survive. She kept a fire burning even in weeks when the wood cost more than she had. She believed, with a specific and practical certainty, that the future existed and that she would be in it. He told her he would stay. She believed him. Not because she was foolish, because there was nothing in his voice that sounded like lying. Anyone in her position would have believed him. Anyone. That is the weight of it. Not that she trusted the wrong man, but that the wrong man told the truth convincingly enough that trust was the only reasonable response. When he left, the practical certainty she had built her life around did not soften, it did not dissolve, it transformed. The child came too early, the child was too small, the child did not make a sound, and she was alone, in March, with a fire she had kept burning for a future that had already ended behind her. She went to the water on a Tuesday. We know this because the grain records show no entry for her on Wednesday. That is the only document that remembers she existed. A grain record with a gap where Wednesday should be. The water was cold. The current was moving. She did not fight it. That is not a detail about weakness. That is a detail about what it means when every option closes one by one and the last door left is the river. The pact was not made consciously. Pacts never are. She did not choose to become something that could not leave. But grief without witness does not simply disappear. It stays, it waits, it calls. That same week, the miller's son went to the river at dusk and did not come home. He was 17. He had no connection to her. He had no reason to go near the water after dark. He went anyway. This is how the cycle begins. Not with intention, with proximity, with a grief so large it generates its own gravity and pulls toward it anyone who comes close enough to feel the weight of it without understanding what they are feeling. She had already chosen a name. This is the detail no record carries, not the grain ledger, not the church roll, not the land survey that lists the house as vacant by April, but the woman who lived in the house next door, whose own granddaughter recorded her memories in a journal that survived in a monastery archive for 212 years before a historian found it in 1961. That woman remembered. She remembered that sometime in February, before the cold broke, she had heard her neighbor singing through the wall. Not a hymn, not a work song, a name, sung softly, to no one. The way a person sings something they are not ready to say out loud yet. The neighbor did not write the name down. She said in her memory that she could not bear to. She said it was the kind of name that sounded like someone had spent a long time finding it. Careful, specific, built for a particular person who had not arrived yet. She heard it once. She never heard it again. That is the human weight, not the drowning, not the transformation, not the 300 years of men who went to the water and did not come back. The name, sung through a wall in February, to a child who would not survive, that no one alive today knows. That is what the water carries, not a monster. A name no one was ever allowed to say. The last person who knew her real name died in 1642, an elder woman, 91 years old, who had been a child when the drownings began, who had heard from her own grandmother, who had known the woman before, what her name was, the actual name, the one she had before the water. She told no one, not out of cruelty, out of the specific fear that naming her would bring her closer, that saying the name out loud was the same as calling her. She died in winter, in her bed, with her eyes open, and the name died with her. The grief did not. This is what the myth understands that the horror story misses. She is not hunting. She is not angry. She is not seeking revenge on men who resemble the one who left. She is still in February. She is still waiting for the cold to break. She is still singing through a wall to someone who has not arrived. The men who drown, they do not drown because she pulls them under. They drown because they get close enough to hear something at the surface of the water that sounds like singing, and they lean toward it, the way anyone leans toward something that sounds like it is reaching for them. There is no malice in it. There's only the oldest human need to be witnessed, still moving through the water, because no one has ever answered it. The village still does not swim after dark, not because of a rule, because of something older than rules. An understanding, passed body to body for 300 years, that the water near that bend in the river carries something that is not finished. They are right. It has not finished. It will not finish until someone says the name, and no one alive knows the name. That is the cycle. That is the inevitability. Not a monster in the water. A grief with no ceiling, in a river that has been moving for 300 years, still waiting for someone to call it by what it is. You are standing at the edge of that river right now. Not literally. You are reading this, which means the grief has already reached you in the form of words, and you already know more about her than the village does. You know she sang a name through a wall in February. You know the child it was meant for did not survive. You know the man left. You know the grain record has a gap where Wednesday should be. You know someone lived next door and heard her and could not bear to write it down. You know all of this, and still, you do not know the name. Neither does the river. That is the impossibility. The grief that entered the water did not carry the name with it. It carried only the absence of the name, the space where the name should have been. And that is what it is still reaching for. 300 years, the same bend in the river, the same long gold light in the same season, the same sound at the surface that the men who have not come home heard before they leaned toward it. There is a village. The river is real. The grain record with the gap on Wednesday is real. The monastery archive with the neighbor's memory is real. The name is not in any of them. And the water is still moving. And the season is still turning. And if you were standing at the edge of that river, at dusk, in the long gold light of the turning season, and you heard something at the surface that sounded like it was reaching for you, you would lean toward it. You know you would, because that is not a weakness. That is what it sounds like when something has been waiting long enough to know exactly what you need to hear. If you want more stories like this, subscribe to Lore Machina. We'll see you in the dark.